Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. I'm here with Sandy Kreisberg, HBS,
Hi all. Yep. Hello.
and it's just a few days before the round two apps are due, and we wanted to give you some advice about what to do in round two. Sandy, if you're a candidate and you've already completed your application and just waiting to hit the send button, is there anything at this point you should do and you shouldn't do?
Yeah, you should have your essay read by yourself and read by some other people. And what you want them to know is there anything about this that's offensive or odd or presents me in a voice that could, like nails on a blackboard to a reader? The biggest, talking about the essay, the biggest mistake people make with the essay is becoming odd, becoming weird, becoming someone whose voice or persona the committee does not like. And the AdCom themselves hint at this in their instructions. What they tell you is don't overthink, overcraft, or overwrite. Okay, that's just their overly over way of saying don't be annoying.
You would say don't appear arrogant, don't be a show off, don't be a know-it-all. Those are all important
most
things,
most
right?
people aren't that. Yeah, don't be a braggart.
Mm.
So my first piece of advice is do no harm, because that's the way more people. What have I said this before? The essay can make you stand up straight. It can't make you taller.
And when you talk about success, you don't talk about making money, you talk about impacting lives, right?
Yes, for sure. And when you talk about your goals, you can present that in a kind of a neutral way. But what you want to make clear is in the essay what's behind these goals. So here's a generic way to do the Harvard essay. Okay. My goals are, to build out the ABC things I've been doing and become a leader in an industry that is kind of related to what I'm doing. Okay. So that's the goals part. And what I'd like to do is tell you some of the important experiences that have helped develop this goal 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So if you're working at a consulting company and you haven't written this essay yet, let me give you an acceptable outline. I enjoy being a consultant where I've had an opportunity to do X and Y, help companies grow, work with dynamic leaders, and really add value. And my goal is to become a leader in the consulting field. I admire people like X and Y. And here are some, okay, that's like the first 150 words. And then there's 4 more paragraphs saying, here are some experiences that have influenced these goals. And those experiences could be, it could start with your family, like an early experience that was important to my development was my family dynamic, okay? And then whatever that is. And then another important experience was in college where X or Y happened. Either I met a great professor or I developed, I majored in chemical engineering and saw what was what. And another experience was that influenced me was the job I had before my current job. And of course, I've been influenced by my current job. So what we have there is a 5, doesn't have to be paragraph, but a 5-part essay, like 1,000 words. My goal is to be whatever. And here are some experiences that have contributed to that goal. Or here are some personal and professional experiences. Okay, that's a way to get through the Harvard essay. If you're scratching your head if you're otherwise, plausible to be admitted to Harvard Business School, and like everybody else, when you find out that the application is due whenever it is, January 3rd, and I don't know, it's December 28th, you go, oh, plenty of time. I'll deal with that over the weekend. And
now, Sandy, the way you laid it out, it sounds incredibly pragmatic. And it doesn't sound like that's a well-crafted essay in the style of the New Yorker or the Atlantic.
Yeah, well, it's not well-crafted because here's the advice they said: don't overthink, overcraft, or overwrite. So that's an excellent point, John. They don't want a New Yorker essay. Mm. How come?
Yeah, they'll probably won't tell them a lot. It'll only show off your ability to write, and they may even question whether you've written it.
Yeah, true. I would say they don't want a New Yorker style essay, which tends to be heavily voiced. And look, the New Yorker is a great institution. I'm not here to diss the New Yorker. Don't use that as a role model. Okay, so one model, and the most versatile model, is my goals are this. Here's what's behind those goals, and then you have to isolate 4 or 5 experiences that you can talk about, that you can quickly summarize, and then the important part, after you summarize the experience, is to say, well, what's my takeaway? What's the influence? What's the learning? And that's where, if there's any payoff, that's where it happens. It's how good you are at saying how this experience impacted me. So that's one model. Another model is to just say, I'd like to tell you about the one thing essay. People say, what I'd like you to know, something more I'd like you to know is the year I spent trekking in the Himalayas after college. You think that's a good idea?
No. There's no takeaway to that.
Well, it could be.
Travel log.
Who should write an essay like that?
Well, someone who had an experience that dovetails to their professional goals or career aspirations. Or
you're not giving the admissions committee a lot of credit. Should somebody who's a strong candidate write an essay like that, or someone who's a weak candidate write an essay like that and hope for a Hail Mary pass?
Well, if everything else is in line like really well, then you have the issue of differentiating yourself. So maybe a trip to the Himalayas differentiates you if you make it meaningful for yourself.
Before doing this little rap, I actually
no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yes and no. Before doing this rap, I actually quickly went through 20 applications that had been granted interviews, so the essay was sort of okay. And I read the 20 essays. Asked me how many of them I thought were good.
I bet you 5.
Yeah, sort of 5. The rest just reenacted something without, do you know what a reenactment is? A lot of essays begin, the phone rang. I picked it up. It was my supervisor at leading investment bank. He said, you've got to get down here. When I got to work, we had just been engaged by X to save their lives. A lot of people write essays like that. Or the phone rang, and it was my crazy friend Joe who said, how would you like to take a year off and trek in the Himalayas?
So what you're saying is if 15 essays are kind of like that and 5 are really good, the essay didn't matter a whole lot to their candidacy.
Other consultants might hire SWAT teams to kill me, but the answer is yes. Believe me, if there's a person on the face of the earth who wished that the essay counted more, it's me and my fellow consultants.
Indeed.
This
In
is the
fact,
thing. Let me say this. As to the Harvard essay, do no harm. Don't be weird. Don't be cute. I keep saying don't be offensive, but nobody really. I've not read an essay that's politically incorrect. That's rare. What I have read are essays that are kind of braggy and braggy. That's almost politically incorrect in this game. Don't be braggy. Don't
right.
show off. Thank other people. So that's the real important thing. Do no harm. If you
Okay.
say,
And
okay,
at
yeah,
this point, what shouldn't you do? You shouldn't, if you already wrote this thing and you kind of like it, you shouldn't start from scratch again. Just
boy,
hang
you
with
can
it, right?
change the tone of an essay in a half hour. You know, an essay is 1,000 words, man. You could take out or modify 5 sentences, and you possibly could save your life if you had been mistaken in your first approach and you thought it was a brag sheet. Don't create a brag sheet. That's some other don'ts.
Now, another little trick is Harvard doesn't specify a word limit, right?
Good point. Make your
How
essay
long should it be?
750 to 1,200 words. That is 90% of the essays I've seen.
And if it's too long, what's going to
If it's
happen?
too long, they begin to question your judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and they begin to get pissed because they say, man, I got to read, you know, I got to turn these pages. I
And
mean, you know, they're well-meaning bureaucrats. They'll do their job.
for schools that do have limits, do you write right up to the limit generally?
This is important. Harvard has, if the limits are for your recommenders and the recommendation says, you know, in 300 words, they'll never blame the recommender for going over the word limit. So what I've discovered at HBS, I think, is a lot of recommendations where it's a 300 word limit. It's most people write 400 to 500 words. And I think that posts, there's only one part of the HBS recommendation where the software will shut you off. And I think that's one of these things about who are you.
Mm.
But the substantive part of the recommendation, it'll post if they write 500 words. So tell your recommenders not to worry about the length. And another thing about recommendations, since we're drifting into it, is you know, most recommenders will say, well, you write the recommendation. Yeah, well, you say, I certainly will, or present them with a draft when you ask them to write it. You go, hey there, Mr. Recommender, you know, here's a draft. Could you write a recommendation for me? And I've taken the liberty of making an outline. You got to play that by ear. Some people would get offended, and most people would go, yes, I
Please.
will recommend you, and I certainly will follow your outline.
All right. So
Okay,
there you have it, round 2, huh?
round 2. Good luck. And if you haven't submitted yet, if you haven't started your essay, there's plenty of time. If you've got an essay that you wrote, if you're one of those guys or gals, you've got an essay that you wrote several months ago and you just keep rereading it, bear in mind, you can make it better at the last minute. So you're not getting a pass from me. A lot of people would say, leave it alone. Not me. I'd say, give it a real close read and have someone else give it a close read and just look for things that could possibly annoy people. Okay, John, we'll meet again on the other side.
Indeed.
After this is over, and we'll
Indeed.
next with John and Sandy, how to do your HBS interview.
Yeah, that's going to come up pretty quickly for the round 2 people.
Okay, hasta la vista, my friend.
Thank you, Sandy. So while you're round 2 hopefuls, good luck to you. Hope you, when you do press the send button, you're really happy with what you're going to send to the school. Good luck to all of you. This is John with Poets and Quants with Sandy Kreisberg on Fridays with Sandy. Thanks for watching.